At this point, I'm convinced you hoes be beefing with yourself on social media, because who the fuck even said that? Ain't nobody say that shit.
A 26-year-old woman was shot inside her Tallahassee home. She was pregnant. Her boyfriend drove her to the hospital, but it was too late. Both she and her unborn child were dead. The man behind the wheel said it was an accident. He told officers that the gun went off while he was leaving during an argument. He claimed it slipped between his arm and his body, but the investigators didn't buy the story. And soon, neither did the prosecutors. The gun was loaded. It was pointed in her direction. The man holding it had motive, opportunity, and a questionable explanation. His name is Jacare Martin Sugren. He was charged with 2 counts of manslaughter. But as new details emerged, that charge felt like only the beginning of something darker.
New at 6, Leon County deputies say this man shot and killed a pregnant woman and her unborn child. Jacare Martin Sugren is facing 2 manslaughter charges now. LCSO says the shooting happened just after 1 this morning off River Breeze Lane, that is near Tower Road. Deputies say Martin Sugren drove the woman to the hospital where she and the child both died. They have not shared any information about what led up to the shooting.
This isn't just a case of a gun accidentally going off. It's a case of lies, conflicting stories, and potential domestic abuse behind closed doors. Maya Johnson was carrying life inside her, and now she's buried in silence, while her killer tries to convince the system that it was all a mistake. What really happened in that house on River Breeze Lane? Was it an accidental discharge or a calculated decision during a heated argument? Why did the gun have a round chamber in the first place? What was their relationship really like? This is a story of life lost, a pregnancy ended, and a man who insists it wasn't his fault. But the evidence, the silence, and the inconsistency say otherwise. Do you believe his story? Was this a split-second accident, or was it murder hiding behind a convenient excuse? Let's walk through every detail and decide what really happened that night in Tallahassee. Stay with us as we unravel this shocking story and uncover the heartbreaking details of what led to this senseless loss. If you enjoy real crime stories that uncover truth, don't forget to subscribe. Your support helps us share real cases, spread awareness, and give a voice to those who can't speak for themselves. Before we begin, let us know in the comments, where are you watching from, and what are your thoughts as the story unfolds? Welcome to True Crime Tales, where we reveal the crimes that shock communities and the secrets hidden behind closed doors. These are real people, real events, real consequences. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's begin. Maya Johnson was 26 years old at the time of her death. She lived in Tallahassee, Florida, on River Breeze Lane, a quiet residential street that would later become the scene of a fatal shooting. Maya was 2 months pregnant when she was shot in the chest and died at the hospital shortly after arrival. Her unborn child also died in the incident. Publicly available records and social media posts describe Maya as a private individual with a limited digital footprint. Her Facebook and Instagram profiles show few recent updates, mostly focused on selfies, family gatherings, and brief status updates about life and mental clarity. She had no criminal history. According to friends interviewed by local media, Maya was working a customer-facing job, likely in retail or clerical services. She had plans to enroll in a local technical college, but delayed due to financial obligations. Her pregnancy reportedly reignited those plans, with close friends claiming she wanted to do better now that she was going to become a mother. Neighbors on River Breeze Lane described Maya as quiet and polite. She was often seen walking her dog and occasionally talking with others outside her home. She was not known to host large gatherings or engage in disruptive behavior. Her personality was described as reserved but friendly. One neighbor stated she always smiled but never talked much about her personal life. Maya had been in a relationship with Jacare Martin Sugren for over a year before the incident. Witnesses and friends said the relationship moved fast. Within a few months, Jacare was spending nearly every night at her home, though it's unclear whether he was formally living there or just visiting frequently. Friends noticed a shift in Maya's behavior over the past few months. She became less responsive to texts, stopped attending weekend outings, and seemed withdrawn. Some friends suspected that she was experiencing relationship stress, but she didn't confirm or deny any allegations of abuse. The pregnancy announcement had not been made public. Only a few close friends knew about it before her death. Jacare Martin Sugren is 22 years old. At the time of Maya's death, he was identified as her boyfriend and was present during the shooting. He was the one who drove Maya to the hospital after she was shot. Police arrested him shortly after, charging him with 2 counts of manslaughter. He does not appear to have a lengthy criminal record, but there are indications of instability in his background. Law enforcement sources confirm no prior domestic violence charges, though one anonymous tip indicated a previous verbal altercation between him and Maya that did not result in police intervention. No restraining orders were found on public record, but this doesn't rule out undocumented abuse or coercive control. Jacare's lifestyle showed signs of financial instability. He was unemployed at the time of arrest. His social media portrayed a different image. Pictures with money, captions referencing street credibility, and frequent posts featuring firearms. Investigators have looked into whether these firearms were legally owned. Multiple posts leading up to the incident included vague statements about loyalty, betrayal, and cutting people off. Although not explicitly directed at Maya, investigators are reviewing them for context and state of mind. There's no formal documentation of a mental health diagnosis. However, his behavior during police interviews raised questions. He initially stated the gun slipped between his arm and his body, causing it to discharge. This explanation was considered inconsistent with the wound trajectory and forensic findings. Police found it suspicious that a loaded weapon was being handled during an argument, and that he chose to drive Maya to the hospital rather than immediately call 911. Phone data and digital records may offer more insight. As of this report, police have seized both Maya's and Jacare's phones to analyze text call logs and deleted messages that may show prior threats or abusive patterns. Maya and Jacare's relationship was not widely publicized. Those close to them claim it had periods of intensity, marked by emotional ups and downs. To most outside observers, it appeared stable, until her sudden death revealed possible signs of long-term conflict. According to friends, the relationship started fast and became serious quickly. Jacare moved into her life with little warning, and Maya gradually distanced herself from longtime friends. Several individuals stated she seemed afraid to say too much when asked about her relationship. There were no formal breakups documented, but one friend recalled a conversation in which Maya said she was tired of walking on eggshells. It's unclear whether she ever attempted to leave him or file a complaint. No known text messages explicitly indicate intent to end the relationship, but multiple sources confirm she was unhappy. The pregnancy played a critical role in the final months. While Maya told a few friends she was excited to be a mother, she was unsure about raising a child with Jacare. She expressed concern about his temperament and lack of stability. One friend recounted that Maya felt trapped and scared of what he might do if she left while pregnant. There were no direct witnesses to arguments or physical altercations, but neighbors occasionally heard shouting coming from her home. Police had not been called to the address prior to the night of the shooting. In the days leading up to her death, text exchanges retrieved by investigators showed growing tension. Maya reportedly sent a message saying, "We need space. I can't keep doing this." This message was sent 3 days before the incident. Jacare replied with, "You're not going anywhere. Don't play with me." These digital exchanges contradict his claims that the shooting was accidental and unprovoked. Prosecutors are reviewing whether these texts show a pattern of psychological manipulation and possible premeditation. While the defense insists the gun discharged accidentally, the nature of their relationship, the proximity of the shot, and the lack of 911 contact immediately afterward all raise questions. On the morning of October 22nd, 2024, Maya Johnson and her boyfriend, Jacare Martin Sugren, were reportedly at home on River Breeze Lane in Tallahassee. There is no evidence to suggest either of them left the house that day. According to investigators, both had remained in the residence from the night before. No neighbors reported disturbances in the early hours. Surveillance footage from nearby homes confirms the couple's vehicle remained parked until the shooting occurred. Around 11 a.m., text from Maya's phone indicated casual morning conversation with friend, where she discussed pregnancy symptoms and plans for a prenatal appointment. These messages ended at approximately 11:17 a.m. According to the suspect, an argument began sometime shortly after 11:30 a.m. He claimed the two were having a heated discussion related to parenting responsibilities and financial stress. Jacare stated that the argument escalated when Maya allegedly told him she didn't need him, and he began packing to leave the house. By his account, around 11:45 a.m., he was walking toward the front door with a firearm in his waistband. He told police the gun slipped between his arm and torso during the argument, accidentally firing in Maya's direction. She was hit in the upper torso. Instead of dialing 911, Jacare placed Maya in his car and drove her directly to a local hospital. Hospital surveillance footage shows the vehicle pulling up to the ER entrance at 11:57 a.m. He told staff she had been accidentally shot. Number 911 call was made at any point before or after shooting. Law enforcement arrived at the residence shortly after the hospital notified them of the gunshot victim. The home on River Breeze Lane was described as a modest, single-story residence. Upon entry, officers noted signs of disturbance in the living room and kitchen areas. A tipped-over chair, a broken phone case, and scattered household items. No forced entry was reported. The front door was unlocked. Officers reported the home showed no signs of robbery or external intrusion. The shooting appeared to have occurred near the hallway between the bedroom and living room. A small pool of blood was found on the floor, consistent with the location where Maya had collapsed. There were no visible signs of a prolonged struggle, no overturned furniture beyond one chair, no broken glass, no smeared blood trails, but the house bore indications of sudden, violent outburst. The weapon recovered from the scene was a black 9mm Smith & Wesson semi-automatic pistol. It was located on the floor inside the hallway closet. The magazine was fully loaded minus one round, and the chamber contained residue from a recently fired bullet. According to the suspect's statement, the gun had been tucked into his waistband and was unintentionally discharged during his attempt to leave. He claimed the firearm slipped from his body, resulting in an unintentional trigger pull. Investigators noted, however, that the weapon had no external safety mechanism engaged. The type of gun used does not include a grip safety or trigger safety like other models. Additionally, the firearm would have required roughly 5 pounds of trigger pressure to fire, a factor challenging the suspect's narrative of accidental discharge. The bullet entered Maya's body at a downward angle, passing through her upper chest and exiting below the right shoulder blade. The trajectory analysis, based on autopsy findings, indicated that the gun was fired from a height above the victim, consistent with the shooter standing while she was either seated or slightly crouched. Investigators concluded the distance between the muzzle and Maya's body was approximately 4 to 6 feet. There was no stippling or gunpowder burn around the wound, ruling out point-blank discharge. Ballistics testing confirmed that the recovered bullet matched the grooves and striations from the recovered handgun. Maya Johnson's body showed no fresh bruises or abrasions beyond the gunshot wound. However, a medical examiner reported evidence of an older, fading bruise on her left forearm and another on her upper thigh, likely occurred within the previous 7 to 10 days. While not definitive proof of assault, the injuries raised suspicions of prior physical conflict. No other blood patterns were found beyond the area where Maya was shot. There were no defensive wounds or signs of physical resistance immediately before the gunshot. There was no indication that the unborn child was the intended target. However, the fatal wound also led to the death of fetus. Medical staff confirmed no signs of life upon arrival. The weapon used in the shooting was registered to a family member of Jacare Martin Sugren. He did not have a concealed carry license, and there was no documentation indicating the weapon was lawfully transferred to him. Possession of the firearm was unauthorized under state law, leading to a separate charge related to unlawful possession of a firearm. As recovered, the weapon had a live round in the chamber, and the magazine was inserted with 14 remaining bullets. The firearm had no active safety switch engaged. Investigators concluded the weapon was in ready-to-fire condition, indicating it had been prepared for potential use. The fact that it was loaded and chambered increases the possibility that the shooting was not accidental. Social media and digital forensics uncovered several images of Jacare Martin Sugren posing with firearms. Some photos depicted him handling the same or similar handgun models. Although he had no formal training, these findings suggested familiarity with the operation of handguns. In interviews, he admitted to having handled a firearm previously and practicing with it at informal shooting locations. Prosecutors later cited this familiarity in court to argue that the suspect would have understood how to carry the weapon safely, casting doubt on the accidental discharge claim. Gunshot residue, GSR, tests were conducted on Jacari's hands at the hospital. Results confirmed the presence of GSR particles on both palms and the webbing between his thumb and forefinger. Fingerprint analysis confirmed his prints on the trigger and grip of the firearm. There were no other latent prints on the weapon. Trajectory modeling based on the scene, autopsy data, and blood spatter patterns further undermined the suspect's account. Investigators determined the most likely position of the shooter was standing in front of Maya at an elevated angle, contradicting the suspect's story that the weapon slipped and discharged. Does this timeline support the suspect's version of accidental discharge? Would someone familiar with firearms carry a loaded weapon during an argument? Why didn't the suspect call 911 immediately after shooting? Do you believe the bruises on Maya were signs of prior abuse? Does the downward trajectory of the bullet suggest intentional targeting? At approximately 7:45 p.m. on October 22nd, 2024, Jacari Martin Sugren arrived at Tallahassee Memorial Healthcare. He was behind the wheel of a vehicle carrying Maya Johnson, a 26-year-old woman who had sustained a gunshot wound. She was also 2 months pregnant. Upon arrival, hospital staff described Maya's condition as critical and unresponsive. Emergency personnel immediately attempted resuscitation efforts. The bullet had struck her chest, and there was severe internal bleeding. According to medical report, Maya showed no signs of consciousness and had no detectable pulse on arrival. Doctors officially pronounced Maya Johnson dead at 8:02 p.m. Regarding the fetus, medical staff performed an ultrasound in an attempt to detect fetal cardiac activity. None was found. It was determined that the fetus did not survive the shooting. The official notation in the medical examiner's report states fetal demise occurred in utero prior to or concurrent with maternal death. The fetus was estimated to be around 8 to 9 weeks gestational age. Hospital staff reported that Jacari Martin Sugren appeared visibly distressed but offered a brief explanation. He told personnel that the gun accidentally went off while he was arguing with Maya and attempting to leave the house. He claimed the firearm discharged after slipping from his grasp, hitting her unintentionally. He did not call 911, but drove her to the hospital himself, which raised immediate questions from both medical staff and law enforcement. Tallahassee police officers arrived at the hospital shortly after Maya was declared deceased. Jacari Martin Sugren voluntarily spoke with investigators that same night. During the initial interview, he repeated the narrative that the shooting was unintentional. He stated that he and Maya were arguing and that he picked up his legally owned firearm as he prepared to leave the residence. According to him, the gun discharged as it slipped between his body and arm, striking Maya once in the chest. However, inconsistencies in the statement quickly emerged. Forensic evidence later showed that the firearm did not have any mechanical defect that would support accidental discharge. Additionally, the angle of the bullet entry and the distance from which the shot was fired did not align with the suspect's explanation. When asked to clarify the sequence of events, whether he had the gun out during the argument, whether he intentionally pointed at her, or whether his finger was on the trigger, Jacari's story changed multiple times. In one version, he claimed he was putting the gun away. In another, he said he was simply holding it at his side. Law enforcement documented these contradictions and noted his behavior during the interview as evasive. He was read his Miranda rights. According to the police report, he was cooperative but vague. Detectives obtained a search warrant for the residence. At the scene, they found the gun on a nearby table, not on the floor or in a location suggesting it had slipped. A single spent shell casing was located, and there was no indication that the firearm was mishandled or dropped. Number 911 call had been made from the residence following the shooting. Given the inconsistencies in his story, the physical evidence, and the lack of emergency contact to authorities, investigators established probable cause. Jacare Martin Sugrin was arrested on October 23, 2024, at approximately 2:30 a.m. at the Tallahassee Police Department following his voluntary interview. He was charged with 2 counts of manslaughter, 1 for Maya Johnson and 1 for the unborn child, as well as 1 felony count of using a firearm during the commission of felony. He was booked into the Leon County Jail shortly after his arrest. No bail was granted at the time. Jacare Martin Sugrin's legal troubles began with 2 manslaughter charges, categorized under Florida Statute 782.07. Prosecutors defined the charges as voluntary manslaughter based on the presence of recklessness and negligent firearm handling during a known domestic argument. In Florida, voluntary manslaughter is applied when a defendant kills someone in the heat of passion without lawful justification, but without premeditation. The firearm charge was applied due to the weapon being discharged unlawfully during the commission of the offense. During his first court appearance, Jacare entered a not guilty plea to all charges. Prosecutors argued that his actions showed gross negligence and emphasized the seriousness of pointing a loaded firearm in the direction of a pregnant woman during an argument. The fact that he did not call 911 and instead transported her himself was used to suggest possible delay in seeking aid, if not an attempt to alter the scene or delay law enforcement response. The defense attorney presented the case as a tragic accident. He argued that Jacare had no intent to harm Maya and that the gun discharged during a moment of panic. The defense also stated that Jacare was remorseful and had remained at the hospital, not fleeing or attempting to hide evidence. The judge ordered no bond during the initial hearing, citing the seriousness of the charges and risk of flight. A pre-trial hearing was scheduled for November 20th, 2024, and a tentative trial date was set for March 2025, pending discovery and further motions. The case drew media attention, especially from Florida-based news outlets. Headlines framed the case as a debate between a tragic accident and a case of domestic violence turned deadly. Online discussions were polarized, with some social media users calling for upgraded charges, including second-degree murder. Others questioned why a man would brandish a firearm during an argument if he had no intent to use it. Local activists called for stronger protections for pregnant women in domestic situations, referencing Maya's death as an example of a system failing to intervene before fatal escalation. At this time, prosecutors have not upgraded the charges to murder, but have left the option open pending the full release of forensic reports and expert testimony. There is also speculation about the possibility of additional charges related to child endangerment or negligent homicide of an unborn child under Florida's fetal homicide laws. Based on the evidence so far, does Jacare's story appear credible? Why would someone argue while holding a loaded weapon? Should prosecutors upgrade the manslaughter charge to murder? Is failing to call 911 after shooting a sign of guilt? Do you believe this was a case of reckless behavior, or is there evidence of intent? When investigators examined the circumstances surrounding Maya Johnson's death, they began by questioning motive. The suspect, Jacare Martin Sugrin, insisted the shooting was accidental, but law enforcement, prosecutors, and forensic experts looked deeper. Was he afraid of becoming a father? Maya was approximately 2 months pregnant at the time of her death. According to individuals familiar with their relationship, the pregnancy was unplanned. Interviews from close friends indicated that Jacare had expressed anxiety about fatherhood and made comments suggesting he wasn't ready to take on that responsibility. Financial instability may have worsened the situation. At the time, Jacare was reportedly unemployed or only working part-time. Sources confirmed he had no consistent income, lived a transient lifestyle, and frequently relied on others for support. Control issues may have also played a role. Friends described their relationship as turbulent. Maya had told at least one friend that she had considered leaving the relationship. There were signs of possessiveness. In some messages, Jacare would allegedly demand to know her location or question her interactions with other people. According to one text message found during the digital forensics review, Jacare once told her, "You're not about to walk away like that. You mine." Jealousy was another recurring theme. In several text threads retrieved by investigators, Jacare expressed suspicions about Maya seeing other men. Though no evidence of infidelity was ever uncovered, The accusatory tone and controlling language were consistent across multiple exchanges. In one message retrieved days before the shooting, he wrote, "You better not be lying to me. You know I don't play." Social pressure may have been a factor. According to witnesses, Jacare often struggled with peer image. He didn't want to be seen as tied down or soft. The pregnancy may have threatened persona he tried to maintain. People in his circle noted that he seemed more distant and irritated in the weeks leading up to the shooting. The pregnancy could have been the final trigger. Maya's growing attachment to the unborn child reportedly created tension. She had started discussing names, plans, and baby supplies. In contrast, Jacare was withdrawn. According to a witness close to Maya, she had recently told Jacare, "This baby is happening, with or without you." That confrontation, police say, may have escalated the argument that led to the shooting. Investigators concluded that the combination of financial fear, loss of control, jealousy, and resentment toward the pregnancy formed a clear motive, even if there was no explicit plan to kill. The gun may not have been fired in cold blood, but the circumstances leading to its discharge were shaped by pressure, tension, and instability. Following the arrest, Jacare Martin Sugren was charged with 2 counts of manslaughter, one for Maya Johnson and one for her unborn child. He was denied bond and booked into the Leon County Detention Facility. Surveillance logs from the jail revealed he was placed on suicide watch during his first week, though no attempts were reported. Jailhouse behavior raised additional questions. In monitored phone calls, he repeatedly told family members, "It was an accident." However, in one recorded call, he admitted, "I told her to stop yelling. She kept going. I was trying to leave." That statement conflicted with earlier claims that he didn't mean for the gun to go off and had no intention of using it. No formal confession was ever made, but the inconsistencies in his private conversations added to prosecutors' suspicions. Maya's family publicly demanded justice. Her mother and sister held a press conference outside the courthouse following the initial hearing. They rejected the accidental shooting claim and described a history of emotional abuse in the relationship. Maya's mother said, "This wasn't just some mistake. My daughter was scared of him, and now she's gone." The community response was immediate. A candlelight vigil was held 3 days after the shooting, drawing over 150 people. Social media campaigns under hashtags like #JusticeForMaya and #SayHerName circulated rapidly. A GoFundMe campaign raised over $20,000 for funeral costs and legal support. Posts emphasized not only the injustice of Maya's death, but the broader issue of pregnant women being targeted in domestic violence situations. The funeral was private, but widely covered. Held at a local Tallahassee church, it included both a eulogy and a reading of Maya's text messages to her unborn child. A separate ceremony was held in honor of the baby, who was posthumously named Ari. Meanwhile, the suspect's legal team began shaping a narrative. His attorney maintained that the firearm was discharged unintentionally as Jacare attempted to leave the home during a heated argument. They claimed that Maya blocked his path and that the weapon was not raised intentionally. They also suggested that the gun may have been faulty, though forensic analysis later debunked this claim. Autopsy results were pivotal. The medical examiner confirmed that Maya Johnson died from a single gunshot wound to the chest. The bullet entered at a downward angle, indicating the shooter was standing while Maya may have been sitting or crouched. There were no signs of defensive wounds or physical struggle. Toxicology showed no drugs or alcohol in her system. The fetus was found to have no heartbeat at the hospital. The coroner ruled that the unborn child died within seconds of the mother due to blood loss and trauma. Time of death was estimated within minutes of the 911 call timeline. Text messages and voicemails painted a detailed picture. Screenshot obtained from Maya's phone revealed frequent arguments, passive-aggressive comments, and emotionally manipulative language from Jacare. Days before the incident, Maya messaged a friend, "He's mad. I won't get an abortion. I think he's serious this time." In the hours before her death, Maya texted him, "Please don't come over if you're just going to yell." That message was followed by a call placed from his number 20 minutes before the hospital trip. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera showed Jacare entering the home with no visible gun case, but leaving with his right hand tucked near his waistband. No loud argument or scream was heard, but the camera did pick up the sound of a single gunshot. Cell tower data confirmed that Jacare was in the area during the time of the shooting. GPS from his phone and vehicle placed him at Maya's home within a 15-minute window of the fatal shot. Gun residue tests confirmed that Jacare had residue on both hands. His fingerprints were found on the weapon's grip and trigger. Blood spatter analysis supported the theory that the gun was fired at close range while the victim was stationary. The angle, residue, and wound pattern all contradicted the idea that the gun went off during an accidental movement. Authorities concluded that while there may not have been a premeditated intent to kill, the suspect knowingly handled a loaded weapon in a volatile situation, leading to deadly results. When news broke that 26-year-old Maya Johnson had been fatally shot inside her Tallahassee home on October 22, 2024, media coverage began with cautious reporting. Initial headlines from local Florida outlets, such as WCTV and Tallahassee Democrat, framed the case as a domestic shooting under investigation. Early stories repeated the boyfriend's statement that the shooting was accidental. However, as the investigation progressed and arrest reports were made public, coverage began to shift. Articles started referring to the inconsistencies in Jacare Martin Sugrin's account. Reporters highlighted the questionable claim that the firearm discharged by mistake while he was arguing with Johnson and trying to leave the house. Some pieces pointed out that the weapon had a round chambered and that safety features on modern handguns are designed to prevent accidental discharge in such conditions. National outlets eventually picked up the story, especially after the arrest affidavit showed the trajectory of the bullet and forensic evidence contradicting Sugrin's narrative. The public response online was split. Some social media users questioned whether the manslaughter charges were enough, especially given Johnson was pregnant. Others believed the justice system was moving appropriately and that further investigation would bring more clarity. In Florida, the distinction between accidental discharge and criminal negligence is handled under the state's manslaughter statutes. If a person kills another without intent but through reckless handling of a firearm, they can be charged with manslaughter with a weapon, a first-degree felony. That's the charge filed against Sugrin. However, critics argue that this charge doesn't account for potential patterns of abuse that precede many of these incidents. In many Florida cases, accidental shootings inside domestic spaces are initially treated as unintentional until further evidence, such as prior threats, witness testimony, or forensic inconsistencies, triggers a charge upgrade. In Johnson's case, the current legal strategy still treats the incident as reckless rather than intentional. Florida has seen several comparable cases. 2021 Miami Gardens. A man claimed he accidentally shot his girlfriend during an argument. Forensics later showed the woman was shot at close range with intent. Manslaughter charges were upgraded to second-degree murder. 2019 Tampa. A pregnant woman was shot by her partner, who said he was cleaning his gun. The weapon discharged and killed both her and the fetus. The case was ruled accidental due to lack of forensic contradiction. No charges were filed. 2022 Jacksonville. A man said he dropped a gun, killing his girlfriend. Surveillance footage later revealed he had pointed the gun at her. He was convicted of second-degree murder. These cases show that prosecutors often start with manslaughter charges while awaiting lab results, autopsy reports, or digital evidence. If intent can be proven through these means, charges are typically upgraded. Sugrin's case fits into this legal gray area. Yet as of now, it remains categorized as manslaughter. As of June 2025, the following developments have occurred. Trial date. A tentative trial date has been set for August 2025, pending discovery and final pre-trial hearings. Pre-trial motions. Defense attorneys have filed motions to suppress portions of Sugrin's initial interview, citing lack of legal representation during questioning. Prosecutors are contesting this, stating that he waived his Miranda rights voluntarily. Plea deal status. There is no confirmed plea deal. The state attorney's office has not ruled out a deal, but has also not confirmed if second-degree murder charges are being considered. Prosecutors appear to be waiting on a full forensic review. Federal interest. Because Maya Johnson was pregnant, the case could fall under the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, 2004, While it is a federal law, most such cases are pursued at the state level unless the incident occurs on federal property or involves federal law violations. However, if new evidence shows the shooting was premeditated or involved civil rights violations, a federal review could occur. From this evidence, law enforcement concluded that the shooting did not align with Sugren's story. Whether it meets the legal standard for second-degree murder remains a matter for trial, but the mechanical facts do not support a true accident. Why did Sugren have a loaded firearm out during an argument? Why wasn't emergency medical assistance called immediately? Were there signs of previous domestic violence that went unreported? Did Maya Johnson tell anyone that she feared for her safety? Was the argument about the pregnancy or another ongoing issue? These unanswered questions will likely be addressed during the trial phase through witness testimony, phone records, and forensic analysis. Do you believe the shooting was truly accidental? Why would someone carry a loaded gun during an argument? Should manslaughter charges be upgraded to murder in this case? Does the suspect's story make sense to you? What would you have done differently if you were in law enforcement that night? If you found this story as gripping and heartbreaking as we did, don't forget to like this video and share it with others. And if you want to hear more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind these tragic events, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss our latest stories, updates, and discussions. Thank you for joining us on this journey to seek justice and explore the truth. Together, we can make a difference. Until next time, stay safe and stay aware.